Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic Roundtable Show. This is Friday, the 14th of February, Valentine's Day. I wish you and your partners a happy Valentine's. I've got a small but powerful panel. I've got some interesting stories. I think it's going to be interesting. I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves. Firstly, Spencer Forum. Would you like to introduce yourself, Spencer?
I'm Spencer Foreman, and I am over from launchflows.com. And those of you who don't know, I am Jonathan's long-lost uncle. I remember him growing up as a wee lad back home. Oh, there's Sally.
Yeah, yes, I am here.
Yes. And I've got Vito. Vito, would you like to introduce yourself to the new listeners and viewers?
Of course. So I'm Vito. I'm the founder of WP Feedback. We help WordPress professionals fix communications with their clients and among themselves through our new platform.
Oh, that's great. And I've got my great co-host, Adrian. Adrian, would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers?
Hi, everyone. My name is Adrian. I am the CEO and founder of Groundhog.
And I've got my friend, Sally. Sally, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Sally Getch, the WP Fangirl, organizer of the East Bay WordPress meetup in Oakland, California.
That's great. And before we go into the stories, I want to talk about our major sponsor of this episode, and that's WP-Tonic Feedback. And what WP-Tonic Feedback's, we all been there in that horrible loop with clients where they are sending us messages by Word documents, by emails, sending us PDFs, all sorts of formats and ways, and we can't find anything. It's scattered all over our inbox of our email client, in our Dropbox folders, and we're spending more time trying to find stuff than actually doing the jobs, and half the jobs we don't do, and they get really pissed off. And it's horrible, isn't it? So that's what WP Feedback helps with. Basically, it helps you communicate with your clients in a superb, easy-to-use methodology. And recently, they've increased their scope. So they've got a new community platform as well that allows you to show your latest work with designers, build relationship with other developers, designers in a secure, private way that's not open to the general public. So you can build more relationship with your fellow designer and developers. If that sounds interesting, go over to WP Feedback and you can use the coupon code WP-Tonic Rocks. I repeat that, WP-Tonic Rocks, all one word, and you'll get 25% off any of their packages, and that's exclusively offered to you listeners and viewers of the WP Tonic show. And our second sponsor is Launch Flows. Now, Launch Flows is an amazing new plugin that really allows you to develop and design custom layouts with WooCommerce. Basically, if you're using Elementor or Divi, you can take the power of WooCommerce and customize the shopping cart layout look to your requirements. You're not restricted by the normal look of the normal WooCommerce checkout pages. And it's just freaking amazing. So if you go over to Launch Flows and have a look at what's on offer. So let's go into the first story. Awesome Motive requires all-in-one SEO pack plugin. What did you think of this one, Spencer?
You know, Saeed is probably one of the bigger entrepreneurs in the WordPress world for good reason. He really understands how most WordPress consumers think, and so has really created a lot of value, obviously, with starting with the blog. But now what they're doing is going around and besides the venture capital fund, they're cherry picking certain plugins that are otherwise not getting the attention. And he's following the model we've been talking about forever, which is consolidating the key things that most people need. Some of the times we talk about this, it's been at the hosting companies like GoDaddy, but he's just doing independently with his own software company. And each of them have a similar model, which is their recurring subscription, their phone home model. I'm sure this will follow the same. So I trust him. I like him. I don't necessarily feel that their plugins are the right choice for everybody, but for the person who comes into the WordPress space, I like the way it democratizes the choices for those key features compared to Automatic's Jetpack, which I feel is non-transparent about the way they're doing business. When you do business with Saeed and WP Forms or WP Ninja or one of the other things, his is the forms, I think. But the idea is, you know, going into it, okay, I'm paying you this much. There's a service that I'm charged for. There's a website I'm logging into and so forth. It's not like put this thing in your website because you didn't ask for it and suddenly all this magical stuff is being transmitted behind your back. So I think this is a natural progression. I will make a side comment, which is, and John's not here to discuss it, unfortunately, but I think SEO has hit the pinnacle of lack of use for anybody on a normal level. And the reason simply being that it's just a factual statement. I'm willing to go on record that unless you have a lot of ad money to spend, your SEO is not going to be the same thing it was a year or two ago. It's not like you'll have a snowball chance in hell ever getting to the home page. Instead, your SEO is more like one channel, like could I be found on Instagram or YouTube or something like that. So to the extent that the plugin helps you with that, terrific. But I get so many clients who ask me, before they've even built a membership site or business, well, what about the SEO? I got every single thing I got to do because the Yoast plugin has got me working 24/7, optimizing my keywords. I'm like, put nothing in there because nobody will ever see you anyway for the next 10 years unless you have $100,000 to spend. And that's what I hope.
I think that's a little bit extreme. But
tell us how you really feel, Spencer.
Yeah. And we got another.
That's what you guys pay me for every week.
Yeah,
It's true. It's true. I noticed that the quote from Syed was very tactfully phrased. They wanted something that was easier to use and didn't specify than what. Although I think it's easy enough to think that the problem is that SEO in and of itself is not easy. And yeah, you can do your on-page optimization, and in some areas, it will help to a degree, but Spencer is right about, all of the off-page stuff and the depending on what area you're in, that you might need a ton of ads and other stuff.
And I want to add one thing to this because this is relevant. And since some of the other stories, I don't know what the hell we're talking about this week, I'm going to do a WordPress related extended opinion here. I have a good relationship with Frederick Towns, who was the creator of W3TC, who is a very successful entrepreneur. And he's gone on to do other businesses. He's Boston based. But the W3TC cache plugin
was
years
awful.
ago, I wouldn't say it's awful. I would say years ago was the only thing and an absolute necessity because hosting was so horrendous, all crammed onto shared servers that there was no way to get a site to load. That plugin.
Yeah, the only problem is that plugin was not designed for shared hosting.
But my point is where you're going with this. It was the right plugin for the right problem at the right time. And Frederick used that as a springboard to lots of other stuff. But my point of bringing it up is we had conversations, he and I, in the last couple of years about what to do with the plugin and where to go with it. The plugin is of no purpose anymore. There's no point in having a complex caching plugin in a world where VPS servers allow you to just run natively without even varnish or caching at all. SEO is the same way. Yoast is sitting on this pile of dog shit of SEO that used to be relevant, and it's not. But the problem is that it's being jammed down people's throats by default. When that Yoast plugin gets put in, people go into an unnecessary panic that every waking moment they got to be optimizing SEO. And if you look at the facts do not support for almost all startup businesses. SEO means nothing. So if anything happens, maybe Saeed will bring some clarity of purpose, which is instead of this being like taking up your whole post editor every frickin' time, maybe it'll be very subtle, like it'll just run in the background doing its little busy bee stuff like a Kismet or something. And that would be very good help.
Well, like a lot of things you say, Spencer, I agree with almost 2/3 of it, but it's just the last third that
I always love when you do that because like we have private conversations and then eventually you come over to my way of thinking.
Well, after I think,
that's because you beat him down, Spencer.
I will
I would say all the time, but I think
Relentless.
about what you have to say. But what I think where you're wrong is, you know, I agree with what you say about Yoast, and I think this is fantastic news that a really serious player, and I'm not saying the other people aren't serious, but what I mean by that, somebody that's got the marketing resources and also the financial resources to make a real competitive product to Yoast, because some of the way that Yoast has been acting and the plugin, they need some real competition. Secondly, I agree with you, just doing on-site SEO isn't probably going to improve your position in any noticeable manner. But where I disagree with you is that, yes, obviously what Google has done over the past 18 months has pushed organic down even more. It seems to be a process that they seem to be committed to. How far they can go, I can't really see how far they can go from where they are at the present moment. Where I disagree with you, if it's combined with a real marketing strategy, a real where you're placing yourself in the market, are you going to nicheify enough? Or other factors, SEO is still relevant. That's where
I don't understand how. Give me one example of how, for a startup, SEO is relevant. The only thing I can tell you that works is Yoast does one thing horrible to people. If you turn on that 301 automatic redirection feature, which is hidden in the background, 9 out of 10 people that come to me who have that don't understand why none of their permalinks are working as they expected. And it turned out that Yoast is busy in the background saving a redirection as a 301 all by itself. So all that I see happening is if you have a bunch of wacko pages that you don't want to have visible, I can see a utility for that purpose, like the robot text file to manage that. But all this bullshit about your keywords and all the finding in Google, it's just bullshit. It's snake oil now. And so the thing that I find is offensive about Yoast's plugin, they are literally continuing to tell people, like, you need to do this thing, but they don't. And instead, they're not focusing on the important stuff, which is make good content that people want so that other people will talk about it and share it.
I would have to.
Well, that's always been the secret to SEO, be relevant.
Yeah. Well, I just have a joint webinar with Chris, who has joined us. Chris Badger has joined us. Chris, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to the list of viewers?
Sure. I'm Chris from Lifter LMS, and I help course creators create, launch, and scale.
So, Chris, do you think SEO plugins and SEO is totally irrelevant now?
I'm fascinated by the SEO issue. I think it's a smart acquisition by Syed and Awesome Motive and a good partnership that he's going into. I do also think with any plugin, it's great to have some friendly rivals. Competition drives innovation. So I think that's really good. When I think SEO, I think purple shirts. When I go to a conference, a WordPress event, there's going to be the Yoast team, a lot of purple shirts. And I think about this a lot, actually, as a marketer. There's a lot of people want SEO. They want to rank high for their business, which makes sense why SEO plugins are very popular. But installing a plugin is not going to improve your SEO out of the box. There's a lot that goes into it. And the best SEO work, in my opinion, has to do with your strategy around pillar content and your strategy around real inbound links that develop naturally over time based on strategic partnerships, creating shareable stuff, smartly building affiliate programs and, customers who a reason for them to share about you that's not manipulative in any way, but just to naturally over time. That's where the real SEO magic happens. I do a little bit. I use the Yoast SEO plugin, and I actually like it. I like being able to control the, the meta descriptions on a per post basis, and have a slightly different message for a share on Facebook versus a regular share and in the Google search results or whatever. But I don't think SEO is dead. I just think that it's a lot harder to manipulate and control. And I think the market, unfortunately, has a lot of mass delusion around how much influence they can actually have over their own SEO by some settings in a plugin.
Exactly. I think you put that excellent. What did you think, Vito?
I agree with Chris most of all, but I think that what Spencer was trying to say, correct me if I'm wrong, is that it just shouldn't be the first strategy you focus on. And with this, I full-heartedly agree. You know, when you start something new, you got to focus on the now. You can't think like 2 years ahead, 3 years ahead. So that's when like ads and cold outreach and all this kind of stuff that are more relevant because they can get you the result today. But
because I'm sure the launch of your own product, you have long-term SEO strategies, but you weren't really that concerned with it at the present moment when you launch, because it's going to takes a long time to have an effective SEO strategy, doesn't it?
So from the beginning, I like on the initial marketing plan, there was no SEO category at all. This only started this year, like going into year 2. Now we're working on the pillar content, like Chris was saying. So we have our little strategy for the year and exactly what we're going to be talking about and how that's going to work together. But it's all about the shares. That's what I found the most, because instead of writing posts on my blog, I collaborated with a lot of other blogs to write on theirs and to share my story and to share my knowledge on whatever, you know. And so from that experience, I saw the power of content. I wouldn't call it SEO. It was just the power of written content.
I just want to say on Vito's point, like when you go to somebody else's stage, whether that's their blog, their podcast, their WordPress news roundup show, the main point is to not get inbound links. The main point is to add value to that person's audience. The SEO that comes from that is a side effect. It's not the priority.
And that's the approach that we're taking with the pillar content as well, which basically we broke it down to a big article about a topic that is really relevant to us, that has relevancy in SEO, you know, through keyword research and all that. Not even looking at what the plugin will do eventually. It's more of what we're working around it to prepare the content for it, but making sure that SEO is, for me, I see it as at least the keyword research is a good indicator of what the market is after. That's the kind of approach that I'm taking to this. Not so much about if I have 3 sentences in italic and 1 paragraph in bold, you know, in the blog post itself. Even though we do that, once we put in the blog, we go through the Yoast rules. I didn't know that they don't do anything. We just follow the rules, I guess.
Adrian, what do you reckon?
Oh, we can't hear you.
You're muted, Adrian.
There we go, unmuted. I think Chris nailed it on the head. If the top of the Google search results for how to do X thing is dominated by the content creators that have been around for a very long time already, and it's going to take you a long time, a lot of content, and a lot of patience in order to dominate, or to at least even start to break the dominance of those other platforms that already exist. In our community, in the WordPress community, it's like WP Beginner, Kinsta, and the content marketing strategies that have been around for years already. So your goal as a new company, or even as an existing company that just hasn't been able to break that, is to get yourself on like the top 10 listicles, which was part of my plan, and start generating or start breaching the other people's content and not necessarily trying to get your own to rank. As Vito said as well, go, and what Chris said, go participate on other people's stages. That time is a lot more worthwhile than trying to get your own content to rank if you haven't built up that sort of like Google reputation yet.
Audience and authority and domain, legacy and all of these things that take years.
Option number two is create a brand that is a misspelling of a word, and you know that you've gotten there when Google no longer tries to autocorrect it back to the original. which we finally got. Groundhog no longer gets auto corrected to the animal. It's just instant. So that's option number 2, and then creating a brand around that, because you will always come up first for your own name.
So Adrian, I missed it if it happened, but did you guys have some kind of a promotion on the 2nd of February?
We didn't have a promotion, but we made a prediction, and we had like a cute little animation go out, and we predicted an early spring. And Puxatawny Phil also predicted an early spring, which is awesome, minus the fact that it's negative 19 degrees Celsius outside, which is very cold. For those of you who
yes, that's exceedingly cold. It is pretty spring-like here, though.
That's great. It's not. There's snow on the ground, and it's white. It's awful.
Well, it worked somewhere.
Yeah. Maybe it's early. Maybe it'll be early spring in Philadelphia or wherever.
See, there you get listeners and viewers. You even get predictions on the weather on this show. Where else in the WordPress space can you find that?
The only guaranteed.
You're British. We have to talk about the weather.
Exactly.
The only guaranteed thing about the acquisition is that all-in-one SEO pack is going to get better.
Yeah, that's true. So on to the next story. Wix, oh God, Wix reveals Editor X platform to answer complex designer needs. Who shall I start with here? Sally, what did you think of that one?
Well, it came up right after our show last week, where we had been talking about the Gutenberg and Beaver Builder and whether the WordPress core team can catch up and compete. And I thought that was kind of interesting, but also a reminder that it isn't specifically the WordPress page builders that Gutenberg is designed to compete with, although it's doing that too, but the likes of Wix. And it says it's come up with this new tool for complex design needs, although at Wix, the website building platform has unveiled a new system that offers advanced design and layouting capabilities. I'm sorry, I will not use a product by people who say layouting. But it is, intuitive drag and drop systems, grid layouting. Is this going to become one of those words that we just have to like suck it up and tolerate, or what? It is a reminder of what's out there, since apparently you have to like apply to their beta in order to see it. I haven't taken a look at it or
You're not tempted?
Not terribly. If I'm going to send people to something that's not WordPress, because I think that WordPress is overkill for their site, it's probably going to be Webflow.
All right. Well, not Squarespace.
Maybe Squarespace, but again, if I'm thinking of the people who really want kind of a Yellow Pages ad of a website, although Webflow can do more sophisticated things, but we're essentially what you want is a static site. Because they want a home about services contact, and they're going to update the content maybe once a year. Wix gives me bad vibes, though I know they've come a long way since their early days of Flash websites.
Yes. What do you reckon, Adrian? It's keeping him on. He's going to have to unmute.
Well, all improvements are worthwhile, and the fact that Wix is around is only good for the WordPress community. Will I ever use it? Probably not. It has its place in the market, though, and hopefully we'll see some. I don't know. I'm not going to use it, but maybe someone will, and they'll see something cool that it does that we don't have, and it'll take someone maybe a day and a half in order to turn that into WordPress, so that we can benefit from what are technological innovations that they have.
Yeah, I just want $5 for every bloody Wix advert I've had to watch on YouTube every time I looked at a WordPress topic.
You want your 30 seconds
they
back?
are very aggressive in advertising. Yes.
Oh my God!
Speaking of the importance of your ad dollars at work, Spence.
Yes, exactly. What do you reckon, Vito?
I used to use Wix.
Oh, God, he's honest, this guy. He's admitting it all now.
So yeah, when it was in the Flash days, I built a few websites on this just to. That was like a nice experience getting started. I think that this is kind of the tool, and we used to reference a lot of customers or potential customers that didn't have the budget for us to just use them. Yeah, then it moved on to using Squarespace. There is, like Adrian is saying, there's a place in the market for this. I can't see many kind of professionals or agencies jumping ship from whatever they're doing and moving onward to that. I just see it happening with Webflows, like we're saying here, because I don't know, it's still very small, they're making a lot more noise than it seems that something is really happening there. But if anything, it's gonna go there, which means that I don't know why Wix are kind of like focusing on giving more advanced tools instead of focusing on more basic tools. I think that's the approach that they should take, knowing their audience and
I do. You're right. I mean, that's always been their core market.
Yeah. So they can do it a lot simpler than what it is now, like simplify the process even way further instead of going down into padding by pixels and stuff like that.
No. What do you reckon, Chris?
I think it looks like the WordPress block editor, but it's good. For designers, agencies, or whatever, these are segments of the market versus a do-it-yourself website creator. So I think it's interesting to see, how different companies position themselves. But like I think Adrian said, I just think it's healthy to have competition, whether that's Beaver Builder, Elementor, the Divi Builder, Wix, Squarespace, Gutenberg. By everybody trying to remove friction, we all get better together. So that's kind of the infinite game of making web design accessible and creating tools that certain are better fit for certain segments of the market.
All right. What do you reckon, Uncle Spencer?
Very thoughtful opinions. I agree with everything that's been said, but I'll take a different tact. I view the scenario of Wix and Weebly, Squarespace, and the other like platforms as the difference when you look at a child who wants to learn how to ride a bicycle. Yeah. You have a choice as a parent. The child gets the tricycle or they get the 10-speed. They get the 10-speed, obviously you need to put training wheels on it. If they go with the tricycle, they will be amazingly happy right then and there, and they will be tooling around with no help at all from their parent for about a year. If they go with the 10-speed, there'll be an enormous amount of pain for the first day, 2 days, 3 days, whatever, if they can even fit on the 10-speed. But when they become a teenager, they'll be riding that 10-speed off to high school and onto the Tour de France. With the tricycle, they will be done a year after you get them the tricycle, and that's it. And that's how, when you commit a business to a Wix or Weebly, a Squarespace, or any of the platforms, to a certain extent, they will always have immediate gratification, and then they will immediately hit the wall. Squarespace particularly good at this. Like, oh my God, my designer friends love it. But they would always end up coming to me going, like, what about the subscription thing? Or, oh, why can't I control which tabs show up in which order? I'm like, because you effed up and you started with what was easy first, but now you have none of the control. WordPress, for a lot of people, super intimidating, like a 10-speed. But then what happens is if somebody interjects and gives them the info, they get the ultimate capability down the road. So it goes with them. And so that's where my take is. There's a great amount of need for lots of different purposes and products, but it's not clear if you don't have good advice, which one is going to get you, the long-term solution you need.
I'll give you 10 out of 10 for explaining that. That was a superb explanation. I'll give you top marks for that, Spencer. We're going to go.
Week. Can you raise my salary for the show this week?
Yeah, of course I will do. It's not even a salary for me, let alone for you, panel.
That's right.
So,
you'll get a 20% raise.
Right,
An additional 20% for nothing is nothing.
It's like being in the American workforce in general. We're going to go for our break, listeners and viewers. We'll be back in a few moments. We're coming back I think we've had a good discussion, actually. I think it's been very grown up, very insightful. I was very impressed with Uncle Spencer's last little statement.
That's your payback for me beating you up on the show.
I deserve it. I deserve everything I get. So, if you're handing it out, you've got to have shoulders broad enough to get some back, haven't you? Our beloved president wants to learn that, doesn't he? On to the next. The important lesson every designer should learn from, I can never pronounce this state. Can you help me? Iowa Caucuses. What do you think of it? I just can't do it. It's just absolutely tricks me up. What did you reckon about this one then, Sally?
Well, it's again, we had talked about this last week and saw this, and it's
the douchebag of the local state, that he's resigned, doesn't he?
The people come and go so often, I lose track, but this is interesting that InVision interviewed somebody who has worked in basically like election design and government stuff for a long time, and talked about the amazing dumpster fire was the word she uses in the interview of the app created for the caucuses. And she's talking about how it appears that it was only 6 months ahead of time that the Democratic Party decided they wanted to use an app, and they only actually gave the people who built it about 2 months to build it. And it would definitely appear
plenty of time.
Well, I mean, this has given me like shades of the E.T. game that was so bad it put Atari out of business, because the guy had like 6 weeks to build it, which was one of the problems. But they've got a very complex system that probably they don't understand, because even in terms of political stuff, the caucuses are just weird. And then you're in a chaotic environment, and you have to download this app, which you've maybe heard about the day before, where you might not have a very good connection, and then figure out how to use it and report your stuff. And not surprising if people who were familiar with doing it the old way found it more efficient to do it the old way. So yeah, just it seems like there were a lot of things that they missed, and that in a circumstance where you especially want a long run up and a lot of testing, and to be sure that the people are trained to use the thing, that none of that got done.
Now, this is interesting, actually, because I'm in the process myself. Chris, recently I've been doing a couple of soft launches for a couple of clients using learning management systems, WordPress ones, yourself, your own product and somebody else's. And we've been doing a soft launch, so we've got about 12, 15 users in both systems. They're separate clients, and they fill in a form to tell us what they thought of the experience. So when you were actually building Lifter, how much discussion went in the actual usability part of it? Because it's really interesting when you start getting some actual user feedback, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot goes into that question, but first of all, we dog food our own product. We have an Academy site. We use our product ourselves. Team members who are not necessarily WordPress power users or developers use it. So we're always getting feedback. We also have very high touch frontline obsession with our customers in social media, like Facebook groups, live office hours calls. So we're constantly collecting feedback. And what I'm listening for a lot is the course creators' experience, but also where are their users getting frustrated? The classic example is people tell my customers they can't log in, or they're not getting the password reset email, or whatever. These are just basic technical troubleshooting issues that anytime we get a signal of a pattern of something like that, we look to the software and how to remove that friction. And we're not perfect, and WordPress itself makes it quite challenging to make usability easy, simply because the tool is so flexible and powerful, and we have no control over what all people are going to load up inside of there. So every configuration is literally different. And because things are kind of buried down in the side menu, and you got to kind of go all these layers deep to get to the settings and everything, it's not as intuitive or as easy to use.
So in a way, it's linked to what Uncle Spencer said. You know, they want a tricycle. In some ways, they want a tricycle, but they want the flexibility of a 10-speed racer, don't they?
This is the ultimate question right here, at least in a WordPress LMS, is how do I deliver all the power and flexibility of WordPress without the hassle? That sounds cool, and you could put that in your marketing if you wanted to, but the reality is because of all that power and flexibility, it's more difficult to use than like a Teachable, a Thinkific, and a Kajabi. But the user experience of the user is that we can compete there all day long. And as an example, like on Tuesday, we're launching Lifter LMS groups. We intentionally designed it so that a group leader or a group admin never goes into the back end of WordPress. Like their group homepage, they edit from the front end of the website. We're assuming that the group person has never seen WordPress, doesn't know what it is. They don't need to even go to WP admin and see anything. Like it's all front end. And that's an intentional design decision to make sure that it's intuitive and we can work with people who are as low tech as possible. But basically, I think the big strategy there is, which we like to do, is we like to, whenever we roll something out or design something, we design for both ends. An extremely like non-technical beginner that's technologically challenged, and a WordPress power user developer person who needs like the API and needs to go nuts with customization. If we satisfy both, which is the ultimate challenge of WordPress itself, then we're doing all right. The middle takes care of itself.
What do you reckon, Vito?
First of all, I love what Chris is saying, because this is exactly the point. And I think we talked about this as we just started about these points and how important it is to actually gather as much feedback as you can. We did it even before we started through the surveys that we did. Even now, we surveyed close to 1,000 people to check what they want for this new step that we just took. So I try to be, we call WP feedback. We might as well do it ourselves. So we kind of like go all out with this. To solve this problem that Chris is talking about, our approach was to create wizards. So we have a backend wizard and a front-end wizard that basically takes the person through automatically. As soon as they click activate, it starts them on this. A few plugins are doing this kind of stuff to get them to, first of all, to get them familiar with the functionalities that you want to highlight, but without cluttering them with all of the additional features that we have once they finish the wizard, So that's the kind of like how we approached it. So you get everything up and running, but if you want the extra step, so you're already driving on your tricycle, but if you want the extra step and you're looking to add the 10 thing in there, so you can through the additional screens. That's like the approach to the wizards that we were taking. Also really interesting is what you said about the front end, both sides of the scale. So for us, we also look at this from the developer side, but also from their client side and how that's going to be approaching to them. So that's why we have like the backend wizard that is just for the developer and speaks in their language, gives them, understands where they're coming from in terms of the level of proficiency with the tools, compared to the front-end wizard that is just, click here, click here, click here, that's it.
So, Adrian, I've got to say, I've been using Groundhog a bit this week. And I just think you did, compared to some other CRMs, you just did a fantastic job with the interface. How much effort did you have to put in to develop that and the concept?
We've completely rebuilt the interface of Groundhog twice. So we built it the first time, and then we were using it, and our clients were using it, and they're like, Adrian, this sucks. And I'm like, okay. And then I rebuilt it again. And then we ran into some more scalability issues, and then we rebuilt it a third time. So total 2 rebuilds twice with plus the initial. And right now, I'm extremely satisfied with where it is at the moment. A lot of our customers are very satisfied with where it is. But that was probably like major iterations every 6 months from MVP. So a serious amount of like feedback had been received in what is essentially a year and a half project at this point. And even so, our target market or our current audience size is like less than 1,000 people, not a huge audience that we have already on our platform or on our list per se. To go out to someone and say, hey, listen, we need this app created in like 2 months, and it's going to be used for like these hundreds of thousands of people to vote for this one thing, and it needs to work perfectly, is like a totally that's where moving fast and breaking.
Well, that's just why I moved the discussion on, because it's linked, but the whole concept was actually the really cynical English side of me actually doesn't believe this was just a total balls up. I think the cynical really, they kind of spook, spy. It was done intentionally to get an outcome to make sure that this caucus was a total failure, because the establishment wanted it to be a total failure. But I'm sounding like InfoWars now, aren't I? I think I've lost the plot, which is very understandable, isn't it?
Yeah, but user experience design comes from, like, nobody ever gets it right the first time. It's probably impossible, or like extremely very rare, that someone puts out something and then it stays exactly that way as people start using it and adopting it and adding it to their workflows, that it actually ends up being what it is that they move forward with. You see Wix adding their brand new editor because they've now accumulated years upon years of experience with how people use their products and what additions they need to make in order to continuously improve that user experience. As technology changes, as other methods of doing things become available, you naturally, the developer in us, or the user experience designer within us, wants to bring those changes, bring those new technologies in order to make the resistance from getting from a concept to an actual implementation shorter and easier. And you need to have the time to be able to go through that natural development process, and give yourself a little time before you end up in an extremely high stakes operation and then putting it to like a real test. So that's what I have to say on user experience design. You need the time and you need the feedback, and an expectation of immediate satisfaction is not realistic.
So what do you reckon, Spencer? You've been involved in building some products, UX, usability, interface design. It's a difficult area, isn't it? No matter what you experience.
Everybody had really good thoughts. Adrian's sage advice at the end I'll focus on, because I agree with him wholeheartedly, but my takeaway to this particular issue is this is a clear disconnect between the people hired to build the thing and the end users. And the problem is you get a bunch of people by committee in the middle who just need something but don't know why, who hire some people that, hey, tell me what you want, but don't have any clue what it's like to be the end user. Some, Iowan in a gym somewhere with no Wi-Fi who's like, oh, I got to get the results in now. Oh, the remote control on the TV isn't working. What they could have, would have, should have done is literally just said, take a picture with your cell phone and email it to this address. Like,
Would it be so simple, wouldn't it?
Like, why couldn't they have...
But that wouldn't be like hipster enough.
But I'm just saying, like, if you think about it, like, where are the brains of this operation? Why not you send a fax to everybody or a horse and wagon that says, hey, Bob or Sally, in between breaks of your coffee, take a picture of the piece of paper on the table and email it to this address with your phone. Because everybody has a phone these days, even my mom or my 80-year-old dad. That's what the solution should have been.
My mom is still using a dumb phone. I mean, I thought I was the last person.
So, like, for your mom, they could have had a backup, which would have been, Give it to one of the kids in the gym to run on over to the library or something. But the point is, like, this is so dumb because it has nothing to do with design. It's a fundamental, I'll step off my horse for a second. When you look at the difference between an organization or an entrepreneur, I'm going to speak for Adrian because I know him a little well. He's got a tight-knit group. They could see immediately, oh, third time is probably going to be the charm. The first one sucked. The second one sucked less. The third one's better because I'm immediately in touch with the people. I live and breathe this every day. Almost all of us do. When you have an organization, all the politics and the people and all this other bullshit gets in the way of, it's not working. Why are we doing this? To let's fix it. And that's the reality, unfortunately. We have clients now that could be doing stuff with one person that they have 20 people and all kinds of net charts and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And this is an example of when bad things happen in politics because it's not their money. They don't know what they're doing. They're not being entrepreneurial. And the Democrats in particular have a real reason to get their shit together because they don't have the money or the ill will to get stuff done the other way, which is, what we're seeing now with politics. So I say, good lesson for those of us who have the opportunity to do things differently is you have to be in touch with who's using your thing and why, and use the least complicated, least expensive, simplest solution.
It takes a lot of skill to make something easy. People think any idiot can make something really complicated. That's what I've learned. I make things very complicated very regularly, listeners and viewers. Here we go. I'm going to skip a couple of stories because I don't want this to be War and Peace because I know you, my beloved panel, you got other things to do during your day. So let's go on to the last story. Story 6, WordCamp Asia cancelled due to the plague. But I think Vito... I think Vito's got an announcement and something positive to say about this. Over to you, right. Vito.
So first of all, I started by the fact that I was supposed to be in Thailand right now on a beach, drinking straight from a coconut. But unfortunately, this thing happened. We had a company retreat planned out around this event. We were supposed to fly out 10 people out there. We're sponsoring. Had a lot of things riding this experience, meetings and all this kind of stuff. All is canceled because, since the decision was made. I understand.
Well, that means you're available in February to come on the show. So what are you complaining about?
Oh, I'm good. I'm here. I'm happy. And that's the kind of the next thing. When we woke up to this news, we were kind of bummed, and I was just thinking, oh my God, I just lost so much money. But then Jan kind of just texted me first thing in the morning that Jan just joined our team a couple of weeks ago, and last year he did an online summit with 2,000 people called the WordPress Agency Summit. So he was like, let's still do it. All the speakers have the talks already ready. Yeah. We have the platform, we have the infrastructure, we have the new community that is growing by the day, and he also has all of his attendees. It's natural, to just do it. In any case, it was kind of our plan to do some kind of summits through the platform. So now we're just expediting the process and doing it really fast. So we were talking to a bunch of the speakers. The organizers are not on board with us, and that's cool. That's the decision. But we're still going ahead with this to try and help the community. I'm even thinking, I have unfortunately a lot of experience with war zones, and I'm thinking of the people that are stuck at home as we speak right now, or in different places around the world, literally quarantined inside their homes or inside cruise ships, right? We talked about this in the beginning.
Death ships.
Yeah, hopefully not.
I'm a happy soul when I am at this.
Yeah, you are really a ray of sunshine today.
No, I am. I'm a ray of sunshine.
So we're going ahead with this, and we're gonna do it on the exact dates. It's not gonna be a big summit like we're gonna do later this year. It's probably gonna be just a few days. of celebrating the community, making sure that the people that got left out or missed out on this have a place to go and watch the talks. And
just as a side note, this
Yes.
whole virus thing, I don't know you panel, I think you taking this on and it's a great idea, and I think I hope I will try and log in and be part of it as well. And hopefully it's going to be a great success. But I just want to put this to the panel, because I don't know if the panel's had the same reaction to this virus and what's happening in China. I'm so confused by it, because there are some news outlets like the BBC and some other outlets that I don't totally trust, but they're the first sources that I go to. And like some sources say that this virus is, its consequences are no more severe than a severe flu outbreak. Probably
So
more people would die from flu. But then the doctor in China that initially identified it, a young, extremely fit doctor, he died. He was one of the victims. He actually died of the bloody thing. So that doesn't look too good, does it? So, what do you reckon about this, Spencer? Do you think it's been overplayed, or do you think? Because I'm getting totally different messages from the media about this.
Well, there's a couple components that I see going on. First of all, I think all of us need to take seriously the fact that when we start to work our way into what's left of the natural world, that all of these cross-species viruses are going to come out. This one allegedly came from bats. We had chickens and monkeys and everything else. And so the idea is we want to avoid, if at all possible, a Planet of the Apes scenario where somebody gets on an airplane and next thing you know, the Statue of Liberty is under the sand. But beyond that, the problem is that we do see a lot of stereotypical bad actors and behaviors now with how it's being handled. Because when you look at the facts, and I'm not minimizing how serious this is, something like 80,000 people died last year from flu. And I'm not saying that this doesn't have the potential to blow up, but like exponentially more people die from the regular run-of-the-mill flu. But when you look at the news media, you'd think, I lived through SARS and Ebola and AIDS, all these things that were going to kill all of us have come and gone, because it just requires us to adapt to and act logically. What
about this doctor dying? He was a pretty fit young guy. And
I think the issue is not so much that people overestimate the danger of COVID-19. It's the people underestimate the flu.
Correct. Right. It's they underestimate.
I had the flu a couple of years ago. It's freaking scary. And, but fortunately, people are more familiar with the flu and with how to treat it. And that there are occasionally effective vaccines for it. And, John said something on a Slack about how, measles is 18 times more infectious. Most of us, I hope, are vaccinated against the measles, but there have been some serious outbreaks in the States. But this is new, it's unknown, it comes from an exotic place, and therefore we react to it in a way that we don't with things that are actually more dangerous, but also more familiar.
Right. I just thought I was going to quickly ask. On to Chris has left. I think he had to get his flu vaccine. On to our recommendations of the week. And I stole this from Chris. I was part of one of Chris's Zoom for users of his great plugin yesterday, and I just stole this because he recommended it. It's a program. My problem is pronouncing the name of the godforsaken thing. It's
Termageddon. It's a wonderful name.
Termageddon.
Termageddon.
It's very relevant.
Basically, if you need terms and conditions, and most clients they always say, "Oh, what about the terms and conditions? Terms and conditions!" Like somehow you're supposed to pull them out your backside for them. This website provides terms and conditions and other documentation that you probably need for your website. And I had a quick look at it yesterday, and it seemed reasonably interesting. The link to the product will be in the show notes on the WP-Tonic website. Go and have a look. Sally, have you got anything you want to recommend to the listeners and viewers?
Sure. I confess I have not tried this yet, but somebody referenced it recently. It is a bulk block converter plugin. So if you desire to convert your WordPress content, your old WordPress content to Gutenberg, and you don't think that's going to be dangerous, which, if your content is mainly like text and lists and the odd picture, you should not have any problem. There is a bulk block converter, so you don't have to go back and edit, hundreds of posts. So I have put that link in the chat.
Do test that on a test site.
Oh, yes, please. Always.
Do not
work on your dev site. Make backups.
Do not do that on your site. Spencer, got anything you want to recommend?
Yeah, for anybody who has any kind of sales funnel or sales checkout page, there's a free plugin that I put in there called the browser-title-bar-animation plugin. And what it
just rolls off your tongue, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it's called the browser title bar animation, but the URL is what it is. And it essentially allows you to put your choice of one of 4 free animations in the browser tab. So if somebody's on your checkout page and then they go to somewhere else, get distracted by cats, the browser bar will go, "Hey, woo, come back. In not a horrible way, not a, Chinese, no noises, but it's very useful. And what's interesting, it's totally free. It works with any site. It works with your site even if you don't have WooCommerce. It just is a way to let people know, this is the tab that you want.
It's like Jungle Book. Look into my eyes. Come back. Sorry, listeners of yours. Vito, you got anything you want to recommend?
So I posted here about Dave Foy's course, No Stress WordPress. He's just about to raise his prices finally after a few years that he's been doing this really cheaply. So this is kind of a course that a lot of people are taking to get started in the WordPress world, but he kind of gave me access to this to see what's going on in there. And I found a lot of things that I wasn't sure about myself. And it's just one of those things that you're kind of you just accept things because that's how it's done, but you never really know the reason behind them. So it's really nice to just go back to the basics. Of course, not a lot of the things are there for super pros, but if it was brought to my attention during my agency days, I would definitely make this a must for each one of my employees to take before they start touching any websites, just to make sure that they have a proficiency level that is needed. I learned from it as well, so I'm sure that a lot of people can learn from this.
Make sure the links in the chat. And Dave, he's been on the WP-Tonic show. We interviewed him, I think, almost a year ago, and he is a superb educator. He's very good on his courses and explaining things, isn't he, Vito?
Yeah,
he's a match. So. And I think he had a previous. Sorry.
I got more in touch with him now with this new platform. He's the community manager for the beginners group in there. So we got to become friends. Apparently he used to play in a band as well, and he's playing guitar. And so it's really cool.
Yeah. And if you want to, we interviewed Vito last week, and it's up on the WP-Tonic show. If you want to learn more about WP feedback and how to move from freelancer to agency owner, go and listen to our interview with Vito that, like I say, has recently been published. So, Adrian, got anything you want to recommend?
Yes. So if you are a course creator and you are looking to add marketing automation to your technology stack in order to increase enrollments, engagement, and revenue, then we just pushed out and published a brand new course. We're calling it Course Creator Essentials, and it will show you essential marketing automation strategies that you need to have on your LMS site. And we show you how to build those using Groundhog, our tool.
Oh, fantastic. So I will have a museo of that over the weekend myself. So, panelists, thank you so much. Listeners, thank you for listening to this. If you really want to support the show, go over to the WP-Tonic website, join our newsletter, which is now mobile friendly. I did sort that out, so the next newsletter will look superb on your mobile device. We're adding a lot of new features, and we'll be adding a sweepstake. You'll be able to win a prize up to $100, which we're going to be announcing at the end of next month, March, to anybody that signs up during February and March. They will be able the ability to win a prize up to the value of $100, and we'll be announcing the winner like the last show of March. So go to the WP-Tonic's website and sign up for our newsletter. We'll be back next week with another great panel. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.
Bye.